Party on, Todd.
Party on, Sal.
Rock on.
Rock on.
Awesome. Well, welcome back, POJCasters, to another episode of the Party on Johncast, where we talk all things brew, music, theology, Jesus. This is Reverend Sal Marco, a teaching elder in the Presbyterian Church USA in the validated ministry of healthcare chaplaincy in Newton, New Jersey.
It's been one of those weeks, hasn't it, where you have to actually pause and think of what you actually do.
Who am I again?
Exactly. This is Todd Latte. I'm an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church of Greater New Jersey, serving here on higher ground from Sal in the lovely town of Newton.
That's the only higher ground I give them.
Sadly, though, as a Presbyterian and a Calvinist, you know that it is God who gives me the higher ground.
That is true. That is true. It was preordained.
Preordained. Okay, awesome. So, yeah. Well, today we are here in my study, what they call the pastor study, fancy word for an office, here at my church, and so we are going to have a little bit of fun. This is our Halloween episode. Last year
our second annual Halloween.
Yeah, second annual. Or as the Babylon Bee would put it, the second annual ever. The second ever annual Halloween show. Last year we talked a little bit about the history of Halloween. I believe we recorded that actually at Bristol Glen last year.
We did.
So, that's pretty rockin'. So anyway, we are going to do that again, but we're not going to talk about the history. We're going to talk about some other things, which we'll get to in a little bit. But it's just Sal and I today. It's just Sal and I chilling, hanging out.
Chilling.
Just
That's scary enough as it is.
It is. So that brings us to our Hebrews segment.
Hey, Todd.
Hey, Sal, what's up?
How do you know that God loves coffee?
How?
You wrote about it in the book of Hebrews.
Ooh,
Boom. Every time. So what do you...
Yes, every time.
What are you drinking, Todd?
I am drinking Victor Allen's... I almost said Oktoberfest, but no, I'm not. I'm drinking Victor Allen's a pumpkin spice coffee, and it's pretty solid. I mean, it's got all the hints of pumpkin spice in it.
Very appropriate for Halloween. You also have a, what is that, apple pie?
It's apple pumpkin. It's called apple pumpkin, and it is a wallflower from Bath and Body Works, which is basically this little glass thing that has a liquid scent in it that you plug into a socket, and it becomes aromatic.
So yeah, this not only is this a Halloween episode, it smells like Halloween in this office, and for Todd at least, it tastes like Halloween.
Absolutely. So, what is Sal drinking?
I am drinking the remnants of it's half watered down, but I got a iced latte with French vanilla from our favorite place, Dunkin' Donuts. Needed coffee. I was dragging before, so I'm sharing an office with our social worker.
You mean to tell me you went to Dunkin' Donuts and you didn't get pumpkin spice?
I did.
I bet you did that for the fact that pumpkin spice is just like a ridiculous amount of calories.
Oh yeah, it's
like ridiculous.
And it's just purely sugar.
It is purely sugar for sure. So, well, I guess that's our Hebrews segment, which brings us to our most excellent music segment.
You guys can't see Todd's face when he says that. It's pretty intense.
It's all no bars held.
No. It shocks everyone who, when their first appearance on the show, they're a little surprised.
Yeah, Sal knows it's coming, but our guests have no clue.
So I guess I'll go first. Kind of a Halloween themed and song for me, I guess. It's really not Halloween specific, but it's the song "Surprise, You're Dead" by Faith No More.
Yes.
It's off their The Real Thing album, which was their 91 album, which is kind of their big break. That is probably their most metal album they had. I mean, they're very eclectic sound. If you know Mike Patton from Faith No More, you know that it was a very funky metal sounding for that album. If you know their previous album, it's more punk. And then their albums after that were a lot more
kind
eclectic.
Of all over the place.
All over the place.
They even got into a little bit of like electronic type sounding music as well. I mean, they're just very eclectic. I think that's one of the cool things about Faith No More, actually.
Yeah. And they came out with an album in 2017 or 2018, Sola Victus, which is a good album, which is, again, that very eclectic hard rock sound. But Surprise You're Dead is actually the most metal songs off of The Real Thing. But it opens with, if you ever seen the scene from Monty Python with the guy with the cart and the bell, ringing the bell saying, "Bring out your dead, bring out your dead."
Yep.
So it starts with that kind of bell. But it's Mike Patton screaming, "Surprise, you're dead. Ha ha, open your eyes. See the world as it used to be when you used to be in it. When you were alive and when you were in love. And when I took it from you. It's not over yet. You don't remember? I won't let you forget the hatred I bestowed upon your neck in a fatal blow. From my teeth and my tongue, I've drank and swallowed, but it's just begun. Now you are mine. I'll keep killing you until the end of time. Surprise! You're dead. Guess what? It never ends. The pain, the torment, the torture, profanity, nausea, suffering, perversion, calamity. You can't get away." And it's typical Mike Patton style of him screaming. And it's kind of that, reading those lyrics, it kind of sounds like it's about a vampire.
It kind of has that feel to it, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. I don't know what would be Halloweenish about vampires. I don't know. Yeah.
So that's my. We'll link it in the notes. It's just it's a short song. It's only 2.5 minutes, so it's a short song.
Yeah. So that's you can't go wrong with Faith No More. Right. And ironically, we when we first started this podcast, we were going to do all metal, and then we noticed that we were just not really doing much metal, and we'd always have to say, well, don't really have a metal song today. But so we're like, well, why don't we just switch it to most excellent music segment? Then we don't have to qualify what music we're. Right. Today we actually have all metal.
The guitarist for Faith No More on that album links back to our Bill and Ted theme, because Jim Martin, the guitarist on that album, was in Bill and Ted. Was it the first or second one? First one. I think the first one.
I think the first one. Yeah, I think the first one. I don't know how many of you out there listening are metal fans, but if you're a metal fan, chances are you have heard of the band Iced Earth. They are a pretty iconic band, and they're along the lines of Iron Maiden. In fact, Iron Maiden is one of their big influences. But they have this album that is completely themed on horror movies, like famous horror movies that kind of inspired them as artists that they grew up loving, like Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy.
That's the cool thing about that new wave British metal type music. They had themes.
Yeah, they had themes, and in fact, that is what's cool. Same thing with Iron Maiden. Megadeth, to an extent, even though that's thrash metal, they had like that character that always showed up on every one of their albums. Iron Maiden had that character that showed up on every, and so does Iced Earth as well. So this album is called Horror Show, and I'll give you the track listing of it, and then I'll talk about a song that I really like on it. The track listing is Wolf, inspired by the Wolfman. Damien, inspired by the Omen films. God, there's so many good ones on here. Ghost of Freedom, which is really not inspired by a movie, but is inspired by, it was written by Matt Barlow, who was he's the lead singer. Imhotep, Pharaoh's Curse obviously is on the Mummy. Jekyll and Hyde is the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dragon's Child is inspired by the creature from the Black Lagoon. Transylvania, hello, is Iron Maiden. That's an Iron Maiden cover. And then there's Frankenstein. I don't think I need to tell you what that's inspired by. Dracula, and then the Phantom Opera Ghost, which is a really good version, a good telling of the opera Ghost, like the Phantom of the Opera story. That is probably one of my favorite albums one of the favorite songs on the entire album. But the song I'm going to pick is Dracula, because I love Dracula. I've read that novel repeatedly. I mean, every now and again I pick up Bram Stoker's Dracula and I read it. One of the things I love about it, Sal, is that unlike the vampires of the 2000s, you know, disco ball vampires that sparkle in the sunlight and you want to have a romance with them, you don't want a romance with Dracula. Like,
it's not like what was that movie with Brad Pitt? Interview with the Vampire.
Actually, that Interview with the Vampire got the vampires mostly right, but they did add like kind of a sexy side to them. But they were still monsters. I mean, like I love that. I love that scene at the end of the movie, and you know, at the end of the movie where Christian, what's his name? Not Christian Bale, but I can't think of the actor's name. But anyway, the guy who plays the interviewer is riding out of either LA or San Francisco or wherever he is on the bridge, and Tom Cruise's Lestat character comes up, pops up, bites him in the neck, kills him, and then takes over driving the car. And it reminds you that these are monsters. They're not. It's great that you just sat down for an interview with them, but then you became its dinner. You know. Back to the 2000s. I'm thinking more like Twilight.
Yes.
Twilight. And Dracula in the novel is an absolute monster. There is some sympathetic side to him, like his past as a prince and whatnot, but what he has become is nothing short of just evil. And what he does to Lucy Westenra in that novel is just awful. Anyway, I could go on and on about this. I love the novel. So this particular song is called Dracula, and it's based off of the Bram Stoker Dracula movie, because John Schaefer, who wrote the song, really liked the backstory to that, and how, like, you know, he does kind of get this sympathetic side to him where he was in love and the Turks shot a note in and his wife killed herself, and some of that is actually historically true. And so then he decides, you know, since I was on a war to protect the Christendom from the Turks, and God allowed this to happen, I renounce God. You know, it's like, and it's just like, and then he plunges into evil and becomes the monster we all know him to be. So that's the way it goes. And here are the lyrics, and I just think these lyrics are phenomenal. Do you believe in love? Do you believe in destiny? True love may come only once in 1,000 lifetimes. I too have loved. They took her from me. I prayed for her soul. I prayed for her peace. When I close my eyes, I see her face. It comforts me. When I close my eyes, memories cut like a knife. And then it goes into the screaming part. The blood is the life, and Christ I defy, my sworn enemy, birth of a new creed. Is this my reward for serving God's own war? The blood I've spilled the blood I've spilled for faith fulfilled. To damn her a disgrace, you spit back in my face. I served you loyally, and you spew blasphemy. And he's talking to the priest there, obviously. I avenge with darkness, the blood is the life, the order of the dragon, I feed on human life. There are far worse things awaiting man than death. Come taste what I have seen, I'm spreading my disease. I will feed upon his precious child, the human race will bleed. They will serve my need. I avenge with darkness, the blood is the life, the order of the dragon, I feed on human life. And then it goes into I am the dragon of blood, the relentless prince of pain. Renouncing God off his throne, my blood is forever stained. For true love I shall avenge. I defy the creed that damned her. And it's just like, it actually fits into what we're going to talk about in a little bit, because bad theology led him to hate God and become a monster.
Right.
Yeah. Horrifying theology led him to become horrifying. Go figure.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Guess what our theme's about?
Yeah, so that's my song. I talked way too long about that. Sorry. But I just have a real passion for Dracula.
It gave me some time to look up on my movie choice.
Oh, good. Good. Which is a segue to
Our next segment, which is our very scary movie.
Oh, my.
So going with the Halloween theme, we thought we would talk about some our horror movies or scary movies that we've recently seen or our favorites. And so I'll go first.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
So I thought I would talk about It, Chapter 2, which is the remake of Stephen King's It miniseries. I confess, I will not confess to plants, but I will confess that I knew of the original 90s miniseries. I saw bits and pieces of it on TV. I knew Tim Curry, who was awesome and quite the character, did an awesome job as Pennywise.
Yeah, he did. He totally did.
But I have not watched the miniseries fully,
Oh, really? So you never saw it in full?
In full.
Okay,
no.
I have.
So I can't really compare the miniseries to the movie, but the movie they did break up into two chapters. So we saw both chapters. Chapter 2 is pretty good. I mean, I'm not a big horror fan. Allison's more of a horror fan than I am. She likes a lot of the thrillers and ghost stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a good combination of suspenseful thriller and like make you want to gag and jump out of your seat scary.
Yes.
I mean, it's an almost 3-hour movie. I think it's
that
about
was shocking to me because the first one wasn't that long. I don't recall. Yeah.
So it's long, and parts of it seemed kind of dragged out, but there's some part like when Pennywise attacks a young girl, like when he opens his mouth and all those teeth come out, like that's like and there's a rather tall old woman in the movie.
Oh God, that is so scarring.
It's just like and she starts chasing one of the characters
naked. By the way, like this is a spoiler you want to know about.
Want to know about it?
If you want to see what about an 85-year-old tall lanky naked woman looks like running at you, this movie will show you that.
The scene starts out with the old lady kind of sneaking through a doorway, and you see her naked, and you're like, okay, something's gonna happen with the old lady, and then she transforms into this 9-foot scary monster of an old lady. But then reflecting on it, I told Allison, I was like, you know what? That reminded me of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Tell him Large Marge sent you.
I'm going to avoid doing Pee Wee Herman impression.
Yep.
Anyway.
I know you are, but what am I? But, the movie, it kind of deals with, the evil or the monster that's in all of us. We all kind of have to face our demons. At least that's kind of what I picked up on the movie, is each of the characters had to face their own inner demons to...
It's powerful.
...be able to confront Pennywise.
Yeah.
And Pennywise is, gets his strength from your fears.
Yes.
And I won't ruin the ending for you, but... they have to realize that at the end to defeat Pennywise. Yeah.
So. And that was the same with the miniseries. That's the basic Stephen King story. But I thought I liked the miniseries, but the miniseries was made for TV, so it's toned down. That doesn't mean it's not valuable or shouldn't be watched. It's a good miniseries, but But this one, they could really go to town with it because it's a film, and now, I mean, how many years later? It's just, I saw it in Dolby, which, if you've ever been in a Dolby theater, the sound is like, it just reverberates through you, and then the chairs vibrate. So, like, even if you're one of those squeamish people that has to close your eyes in scary, you're not getting away with it in the Dolby theater, because whether you see it or not, you'll feel it. So it was a really cool experience. It was a good movie to see.
And it's got some really good performance by Bill Hader.
Yeah,
which I didn't expect.
Was shockingly good.
So good acting. I thought the ending was kind of cheesy because they have to wrap up like the message of the movie.
Yeah.
Very funny, very cool cameo by Stephen King.
Yes, which he hasn't done in a long time, because he used to do that all the time in the 80s. Yeah.
I recently saw the remake of Pet Sematary.
That was good too.
Which was good, but I thought the original was a little better.
Okay, yeah.
But still a good movie. I don't remember if he did the cameo in that movie.
He didn't, and I liked both. I liked both of them. I didn't necessarily think that the new take on it made. I don't know that the new take on it took the original anywhere new.
Yeah.
So it was just like a more fresh take on what was already there. And I'm not upset that they made it. It was a good film, but they added a twist to it at the end that didn't happen in the original film and didn't happen in the book. But they say that overall that they were a little closer to the book than the original film was, except in that twist where they're totally not in line with the book or the other film. So
and Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. I first discovered Bill Skarsgård in the Netflix series Hemlock Grove. Have you seen that? Mm-hmm. Hemlock Grove, which is based on a book. It's basically about a small town in Pennsylvania with the main characters like a vampire and the other characters of a werewolf.
A werewolf, yeah.
It's very kind of a teenagery, but it's a horror like series. It's only like two seasons.
Yeah, it didn't last long.
But he was good in that. The second season got really very campy, and I was like, okay, I'm glad they ended it after 2 seasons, but
he is the job he does as Pennywise.
Because in that Hemlock Grove, I was like, all right, he's an okay actor, but as Pennywise, he is awesome.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like he really gets the character of like this tormented clown.
Yeah, and anybody who knows it, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, but it won't really ruin anything for you because you figure it out pretty quickly. Anybody who knows it, Pennywise isn't actually a clown. Mm-hmm. Pennywise shows up as a clown because he's either luring little kids, or clowns can sometimes have that creepy effect, so he's playing on your fear. But really, he's something otherworldly, and like Sal said, he plays on your fears. So he can show up as a old woman who looks cute and harmless, but is scurrying around absolutely naked.
Yep. Or he shows up.
It's just like it was creepy. I mean, it was really creepy.
Or he shows up as the bully who's gonna reveal your secret, or as the old man with leprosy, or
yeah.
That was blah.
That was nasty too. Yeah. There's a lot of ick factor in it, but it does drive a powerful story, and it's a powerful metaphor for us. I mean, it really is. And most horror films are. Yep. Yeah. Like metal.
Yep.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, my very scary movie is actually, it's not a movie, but it's a continuation of what was 3 movies. It's Ash versus Evil Dead. I don't know if anybody has seen that. It's a Stars series.
Stars or show.
It's
one of the.
It's a Stars original. Channels. Yeah, it's a Stars original. It only lasted 3 seasons, and that's not because it wasn't good. Actually, it was really good. It was really well watched. But Bruce Campbell was like, all right, listen, I've played
He's
this
been doing the character, what, for 40 years now?
30 or 40 years, probably. Yeah. He's like, look, we got to retire this character. I'm done with it. And so they actually went into season 3 knowing this is it. And it, I'm not going to give it away, but they wrap it up nicely. Like they really do. But every one of those seasons is just spot on. First off, I don't know if you saw it, Sal, but they made a remake of Evil Dead. It was
okay.
Okay. I mean, it was okay. It was good. I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
But only Bruce Campbell can play Ash. There's nobody who can be Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. I mean, what made the original and that one scene in particular with the tree so scary is because it was physical effects.
Yeah.
The remake obviously uses CGI, and it's it's scary because you know what's going to happen, but it's it doesn't have the same bite as the original. For those
who have not seen The Evil Dead, all I will say is go watch it. There is a scene where a tree has its way
with a young female,
and that's all we'll say about it. But it doesn't show it per se. It doesn't. It's not like graphic in that, this shouldn't be on the screen, but your mind fills in what it doesn't see. So for audiences seeing that for the first time today, you're kind of like whatever, because we've seen so many like outlandish things that's almost like infantile today. But for seeing that for the first time in the early 80s, it was just like, oh my God, what did I just see on, people wanted it banned. And what Sam Raimi noticed, because Sam Raimi is the one who directed it, and he's the one that went on later to direct their first 3 Spider-Man movies and all of that. But what Sam Raimi noticed was that they really wanted to make a serious horror film, and they did in the original Evil Dead. But there was a level of camp to it that was not necessarily intended, and I think that comes from Bruce Campbell. Who just...
If you know his career, it's very... He embraced the camp.
He embraced it, yeah. And I think Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi got together and just said, you know what, let's do a sequel. We'll retell the first movie, and they tell it a little differently than it happened in the movie, but we'll retell the first movie, but we're going to make Ash like the epitome of like horror camp, and he is going to be just about everything that is politically incorrect in the world.
So by the time you get to Army of Darkness, it's comedy at that point.
But you said you love me. That's what we call pillow talk. He is like a chauvinist. He's a racist. He's like everything you shouldn't. And what I loved about the series, so they made Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2. That's Evil Dead 2.
Where he loses his hand.
Is where he loses his hand. He may have lost his hand. I think
he cuts it off.
He cut it off in the first one, but it's in Evil Dead 2 where you really see him starting to use that chainsaw in a way to fight the Evil Dead. And then Army of Darkness is more like Jason and the Argonauts, and it's comedy more than it is horror.
Yeah, he goes back in time and he has to fight skeletons. The leader of the Army of Darkness, his jaw keeps falling off when he keeps trying to say tally ho, and his jaw keeps falling off.
Tally. So they decide to make this series where it's like 30 years after the Army of Darkness, and
they tied in the movies very well.
They tied in the movies very well, and then he accidentally, this is again his character. He brought somebody home from a bar or something, and he wanted to get passionate with them, and so they decide to, he pulls out marijuana and they smoke it together, and then he thinks in his stoned state that it would be cool to pull out this old book and show it to her, and he starts reading what it says to her. He's like, oh, you want poetry? Here's poetry, baby. And he starts reading the Necronomicon, which of course brings the Evil Dead back. And so he ends up having to fight the Evil Dead. But what I love about the series is it combats in a way that doesn't happen in comedy anymore. Now, if we're going to do comedy, we're just going to be vulgar. We're going to be stupid. And I find comedy a lot of days not even funny. It's just like the F-bomb 150,000 times. And it's stupid sex humor that doesn't really hit. What made this different is Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, and crew really made this like Mel Brooks would make it. Like Blazing Saddles, where they use words and do things and say things that would absolutely offend anybody who heard it, but they pull it off so that you're laughing. Mm-hmm. And then you realize, oh, that's really not funny. And it instructs you about our own biases and instructs us about our own flaws in a way that is comical. Mm-hmm. But it's not comical because I shouldn't be laughing at this. Why am I laughing at this? Yeah. So it's just brilliant.
Yeah. And it's available on Netflix.
Yeah, it's available on Netflix, all 3 seasons.
I'm about halfway through season 2, so I've got about a season and a half left. So
no spoilers for me.
No, it's one of those things I started binging it, and then the next thing came out, and I binged that, and then I binged that, and just haven't gotten back to it yet. But.
Yeah, I just finished it up last week, and it's just brilliant. It's perfect, and he is like, I love his little his little Mexican friend, and what does he say to him? He says something like, he's like. I forget what he says, but every time he introduces Ash, she's like, "Yeah, here's my pretty cool, slightly racist friend Ash." It's just, but that's the running joke throughout the whole series and throughout the whole film series too. So that's that.
That's that. I actually have a bonus content for our movie section. This is I'm doing air quotes right now, horror movie. That I'm not recommending. If you're from New Jersey, you know the urban legend, the myth, of Clinton Road, which is actually in the town where I live, West Milford. It's about a 10-mile road that goes from Route 23 in West Milford to Warwick Turnpike, which takes you up to Warwick, New York. And it's supposedly, it's been in Weird, New Jersey. Supposedly, it's the second most haunted road in the country. I'll
be honest, I've been down that road and have had weird experiences.
It's spooky. Actually, Allison and I drove home on Clinton Road after we saw It, Chapter 2.
That's a perfect road to drive down. Why not?
And it was foggy, and it's creepy. It's a creepy road.
Yeah.
Because there's a lake, it's windy, it's
dark.
Really desolate. There's really nothing on it until you get to the ends of it. So last year there came out a movie called Clinton Road, about the Clinton Road, and it was all over the news because Ice-T
was in it
for 2 minutes. I think they splurged with their budget to get Ice-T and
or they drugged him.
Ice-T, Vincent from what's his name, Big Pussy from Sopranos was in it.
Yeah.
And Eric Roberts for like 30 seconds was in it. Eric Roberts of 80s movie fame.
Yeah, is that Vincent?
Not D'Onofrio.
Not D'Onofrio. No. Anyway, I know who you're talking about.
But it's very low budget. I mean, I think seriously, Ice-T is in the beginning of it as a club owner. The acting is not good. The story makes no sense. It's all over the place.
By the way, I did rent it. I have yet to watch it. But I'm going to painstakingly watch it just because of having been down. Probably the same reason you did.
Yeah. Having been down it, I knew I had heard of it because it was in the New Jersey newspapers that Ice-T was making this movie about.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's another movie called The Lake on, and I don't know how that is, but that you can watch on Prime. I think has it free.
That looks slightly better.
Yeah. So I'll check that out too.
So check it out.
And then I'll curse that I paid to watch a worse movie than the one I could watch for free. Okay, so that is our very scary movie segment, which brings us to our horrifying theology segment. Oh my! So why don't you lead us into this one, Sal?
Yeah, I mean, with the modern technology of social media and Twitter, we get a lot of our shithouse theology from Twitter lately.
We do, for sure.
So we thought we'd do our scary, horrifying theology from some recent Twitter activity.
Sounds good. Sounds good. There's been enough of that, right?
There has been enough of that. And this is an old favorite of ours from our shithouse theology segment, Union Seminary in New York City.
Yeah.
Which...
Can't even call it theological anymore.
Yeah. How they call themselves a Christian seminary at this point it's hard, at least from their online presence. You know, I know some very faithful Christians who have gone there, but from their online presence, their Twitter presence, and their well-meaning president, it just feels like they're trolling us at this point.
Trolling Christians, yeah. Like just putting things out there to rile the Christian community.
Yeah,
up.
like
yeah.
If you have orthodoxy in the middle, they're so far left field. It's not even a home run.
Yeah, let's just say Athanasius is exploding right now in his grave.
Yeah. So. If Saint Nick was here, he would be punching heretics at Union.
And that's not to say that all students who go to Union are heretics, or all teachers who are there are heretics. That's not what we're saying. But what we are saying is almost everything that comes out of their Twitter account is heresy.
So what happened on Twitter a day or two ago, and I woke up to this, and habit, first thing I do when I wake up is I'd look at my phone, and had a notification from Twitter. It was a mutual friend of ours on Twitter from another podcast had retweeted this tweet from Union that apparently this week in chapel the students got together around plants and confessed their sins to plants.
I mean, you just can't make it up. Like, you just...
And the funny thing is, if you look at the picture in the back, there's an African-American student who's like, you can see the horror in his face. Like, what am I witnessing?
Like we said, not all people who go there are aboard.
So apparently, if you look, and the responses from Union are... I understand where they're coming from. They're trying to develop a theology around eco-care and care of creation.
Totally down with that.
Yep. I mean, that's implicit in the Bible, is our care of creation. But to confess your sins to the creation and not the creator is a little... it's mind-boggling.
And that's what it... Right? Like, so... And then the people were trying to defend that and say, well, just because you're confessing doesn't mean you're worshiping. True, but confessing to something that can't receive your confession and cannot give you forgiveness makes absolutely no sense. So if I punch Sal in the face, which I won't do, but if I did, and I confess to him that what I did was wrong and I apologize for it, Sal can say, hey, that's fine, and smack me back. If I burn a plant, I can't confess to another plant and receive any sort of absolution or forgiveness or...
Because the pivotal act of that thing or that person receiving your confession and then granting forgiveness is not present.
Yeah, it's just not present. So... So this, of course, everything that they post on Twitter just explodes and goes viral. So people all over the place were just like on this, like, like flies in the.
So, here's the tweet. It says, "Today in chapel we confessed to plants. Together we held our grief, joy, regret, hope, guilt, and sorrow in prayer, offering them to the beings who sustain us, but whose gift we too often fail to honor. What do you confess to the plants in your life?"
So a number of people, like, I think Evan tweeted that, like, I confessed that I love plants because they nourish the tasty animals I eat.
And to which I responded to Evan, I said, does it make us vegan if the animals were vegan? I confess for this statement.
I confessed, what I tweeted was, I confess that as a vegan, tasty plants probably view my home as a house of horrors. I also confess that I simply don't confess anything to plants. I just eat them.
Yeah, my tweet was, I confess those plants are pretty tasty when roasted. Oh, and I feel like this is trolling somehow.
Somehow, on their post, I tweeted a picture of Swamp Thing. It's just Swamp Thing looking down like, oh my god.
Yes, and my response on their tweet was
say what?
Say what?
Yes. And there are more. So hear us out here. Ethan Nicole. Shout out to him, though I'd be very shocked if he listens to us. That would be awesome if he did. But Ethan Nicole actually he retweeted it, and he's from, by the way, the Babylon Bee. So I listen to those guys. I love them. But Ethan Nicole's like, it's all a misunderstanding of the term church plant.
I saw that.
People were having lighthearted fun with it because it's just so ridiculous, horrifyingly ridiculous.
And I know the person that was leading there. Apparently it's part of a class on, liturgy around creation care, and I know that he's a legit theologian. But it's like, in the context that they tweeted it, it's like, what? There's no context behind it.
Right.
There's no
So we don't even really know what the liturgy was. And that's the thing. And it's we live in this we live in this time where everybody now has to be what they call woke, right? Mm-hmm. Now some of that is good. Some of that's an awareness of cultural differences and being sensitive to people. So we're not like judging them or labeling them or pigeonholing them. Some of that's good. But now everybody has to be woke. So we're going to be woke. And what are we going to do to be woke? Well, we're going to pray to plants, and we're going to tweet about that in a way that gets people and makes people aware. But all it's really doing is causing people to scratch their heads, causing Christians to get up in arms because it seems like we're now praying to plants, which is weird. And then it, like you said, it's devoid of any context. So it could be that they did this and it was very theologically, like maybe it was surrounding the plants and lamenting over the way we were treating our earth, but maybe there was God included in that. We have no clue.
We don't know, because we simply saw a picture tweeted of a group, dirt and house plants, a young woman sitting on the floor by the plants, and a group of people in chairs, and it said, "What do you confess to your plants?" So we don't know what the actual liturgy was. We don't know what the prayer was after that.
Right. Yeah. Somebody on Twitter commented, "You forced the plants in pots, pulled them from their homes, dragged into a stuffy room, stealing their earth from the ground it was from, forcing them into an artificial environment, suffering the indignation of being put on display like as if they were in a zoo. You monsters." It's just, I don't know what else we can say about this one. It's another display of ridiculous tweeting by Union.
Yeah.
And
if you know our previous discussion on Union,
the president
at around the time of Easter was interviewed and essentially said, you don't need to believe in the physical resurrection to believe in resurrection.
Right, yeah.
On Easter.
And again, that's implying that, there's, resurrection can be spiritual. It doesn't need to be, Jesus didn't need to actually get up and walk out of the grave for it to mean something. Well,
and that's,
he did.
I tweeted out recently that Christian Twitter is weird, because that issue came up recently again on Twitter, on Christian Twitter. And it was, and the amount of high-profile Christians who, there were folks like Todd and myself who responded with sincere critique of, what exactly are you saying here in terms of physical, literal resurrection?
Yeah.
And some very high-profile Christians accused those who were critiquing in an attempt to dialogue on Twitter, accused them of shaming
And causing violence. Very high-profile people were trying to make the argument that because people were talking to this person about whatever they tweeted, and I forget what the specific tweet was. Oh, I remember what it was. It had to do with anyone who, basically the tweet was that anyone who held to orthodoxy on doctrines such as the physical resurrection were fundamentalists or something of that nature. That's not word for word, but that's basically the way it went. And they basically were saying that that if you disagreed with that and tweeted against the idea of that and stuck to orthodoxy, you were actually bringing harm against the person who tweeted it, because what you did then was spark the crazy people out there who were then sending her death threats, which is, it's like, no, you put an idea out there. No one made you put that idea out there. No reason why I shouldn't be able to defend that. In fact, as a pastor and as a theologian, it's my duty to defend the doctrines, of Christianity, the Orthodox.
It was essentially an argument about orthodoxy versus orthopraxy. Right doctrine, right thinking versus right action.
Right.
And the folks who ascribe more to orthopraxy saying, well, don't clobber me over the head with orthodoxy because that prevents me from doing orthopraxy. It's like, well, you can't do good orthopraxy without good orthodoxy.
Right.
One is a function out of the other. So when pastors and theologians were engaging in this discussion and pushing back and saying, whoa, are you saying that this is what your belief is different from the Orthodox traditional position? That was because it's Twitter and it's not face to face, it's words and it's spur of the moment. Here's my thought.
Yeah,
that was thrown back in those pastors and theologians' face and saying, "You're shaming us,"
including ours. Yeah. And a good conversation did come out of that, and the person said, "No, well, I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm just saying we shouldn't be judgmental toward people who are having a hard time struggling with that." So, but the initial tweet was a shaming. You want to talk about shaming? It was a shaming of anybody who held to the Orthodox Christian point of view,
right?
The theological view. Yeah.
We were shaming her, but. She was shaming us in the initial tweets. Yeah.
So, friends, you can't do that. If you're going to put a public idea out there publicly, you're going to expect pushback. Now, I'm not saying that people were right in sending her death threats, and those people aren't even Christian. If you're sending death threats, you're not a Christian. Sorry. But no one forced said person to put that idea out there for the public debate.
Like, and I've seen theology done very well on Twitter where pastor or theologian professor will specifically say, okay, this is going to be a thread, and they'll start their thought because they understand that theology can't really be expressed in 146 characters or 200, whatever.
140, I think, yep.
So they'll do a series of tweet after tweet after tweet to go over. Like, it wasn't presented that way. It was simply presented, if you stick to this orthodoxy, you're a fundamentalist.
Yeah, just left there.
No context around it. Just this is a thought I had while working on a sermon. No context.
Maybe next year we'll do horrifying Twitter.
Yes, we should.
But yeah, that's exactly what happened. So anyway, the next thing that we have on the list of horrifying theology is the good Reverend. I don't know if you can call him the good Reverend, but the Reverend Robert Jeffers.
For those of you who don't know who he is the pastor of
Fox News. I mean,
yes. He is one of the prime contributors on Fox News. He is a staunch defender of our president. He is the pastor of First Baptist Church in Dallas, which is a very large, mega church, large Southern Baptist congregation in Texas. And they are very well known for their Patriot Sunday, which is, I think they call it Patriot Sunday.
I think it's called Patriot Sunday.
It's the Sunday on or around July 4th. You can probably figure out what that worship entails.
I'm pretty sure we can find a picture and post it.
We'll find a picture and post it. The nation of the United States of America features prominently in that. It's promoted as a service to celebrate the birth of our nation and the freedoms that entails.
Yeah.
But it is damn near, if not nationalism.
Oh, it is civic religion masked by the word Christian. So what they do basically is they worship in that service.
They worship the flag.
They worship the flag. They worship the flag. They worship America, and they do it. They do it in the name of God, which is, I don't know if that would be measure up to what Jesus says when he says, there's no unforgivable sin but the sin of blaspheming the Spirit. Mm-hmm. But when you are literally putting your political agenda up for worship and doing it in the name of God, I don't know. I mean, that's just, I don't know that there's much worse than that. I mean, if you're an American, it may be hard to wrap your head around this because we think of our country as good, and generally speaking, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who want to highlight all of America's woes, and there's a time and a place for that, and we can't forget them. That's for sure. But overall, America's not a bad place. Right. It's a good country, but. If you want to wrap your mind around it, every country thinks they're a great country. So Nazi Germany thought it was a great country. Could you imagine walking into a church and seeing the swastika flag wrapping the entire church and everybody worshiping how great Nazi Germany is? Okay, now I know that's an extreme, but that will give you the level of, and doing it in the name of God with God's blessing.
Right. And I stand corrected. It is not Patriot Sunday. It is Freedom Sunday.
Oh, Freedom Sunday, even better.
They even wrote their own hymn about it.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So what's horrifying about that is it absolutely has no place. In the sanctuary.
Guess who was the preacher that Sunday?
Who?
Oliver North.
Oliver North.
Yes.
Oliver North was the preacher.
Yes. He spoke.
Didn't know he had those credentials.
No. He spoke about, service and freedom and patriotism. Which are, that's right up there with what Jesus taught.
Yeah, Jesus totally taught honor and service, and service certainly. But the kind of service that they're talking about is service in the United States of America's military, and not service as in serve and love your neighbor as yourself kind of deal. What's horrifying about it is that there are many Christians out there who are deceived by the notion that being a good American is a requirement for being a good Christian.
I mean, you and I have witnessed that in my chapel services at Bristol Glen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the generation that I serve are the great generation, the silent generation, served in Vietnam and Korea. Mm-hmm. Or not Vietnam. Well, some of the newer resident. World War II and Korea.
Yeah, World War II. Yeah.
So, which was that was a very big world-changing event.
Mm-hmm.
That required service and patriotism.
Yeah.
And did legitimately defeat an evil force.
Yeah.
But it was those vets who were coming home who really married this idea of patriotism and the flag, God and country, into, because as they came home and had families, the whole baby boomer generation, the peak of American mainline Christianity, Protestant Christianity, was the 60s and 70s when these vets were coming home and having babies and starting families. because of that service, that seeped into the church.
And it was well-intentioned. And, and I know many people who serve and are proud of their service and proud of their country, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we're in the sanctuary, we're there to worship God.
So a lot of the older generations that will give folks like Todd and myself and a lot of our colleagues gruff about, well, you don't have the American flag placed right in the sanctuary, because there's a flag code and there's appropriate ways to display the flag.
Yeah. And it needs to be higher than any other flag.
Higher than any flag. Well, not the cross.
Yeah. And that's just it. I'm not saying God would want you to be a bad American. Okay, that God would want us to be good. Period.
Yes.
But God is not American. God is not German. God's not Egyptian. God's not Jewish. God's God.
Yeah.
And God is above all other things. The flag should not be above God. God is well above the flag.
It's kind of the point of the whole render unto Caesar what is Caesar and unto God what is God is.
Yeah.
Everything is God's.
Everything is God's.
Caesar may be appointed by God, or you might have to honor Caesar because he's been put in place by God, but you don't owe. Our loyalty is not to Caesar. Our loyalty is to God and Christ crucified.
And I would even say that this is coming from my theological bent. I would say that it's not so much that God puts people into power, but God doesn't stop them from being in power. God doesn't, God didn't stop Hitler. Didn't come down and strike Hitler dead before he could ascend to be dictator of Germany. I don't know many people who would say God appointed Hitler to be dictator of Germany. So there's a difference. But the reality is we are in general supposed, we shouldn't be troublemakers. We shouldn't be divisive. We should be good citizens.
Honor those placed in authority over us.
So long as what we're doing honors God.
Right. And that's very much and Robert Jeffries and his type will point to Paul's letter to the Corinthians and say, honor those put in authority. What is it?
For God put them there.
For God put them there.
Yeah.
But then they stop at verse 7, not realizing that verse 8 through 10 says, but if the law goes against the law of God, which is love, do not obey it.
Don't obey it. Right. So in other words, if Caesar's telling you to bow down and worship me instead of God, don't do it. If Caesar's telling you to fornicate and pay tribute to him, don't do it.
If Caesar is telling you to put children in cages, don't do it.
Right. So and that's what it comes down to. It's not about disrespecting or dissing our country, but it's about recognizing that God transcends all of that, and God is what matters.
There's a moral law that supersedes civil law.
Civil law. Right. Amen.
And if it doesn't come out of the law of love, don't do it.
Don't do it. Well, that's our horrifying theology for, I think, this particular.
I think that's a lot scarier than It, chapter 2.
I think it's, when you really think about the implications of these things and where they lead, it is scary. It is scary. Even the plant thing, which was more funny than scary. If you really think about where that leads, that tweet, we don't know what they did in the service, but that tweet itself leads people to think that, I can just pray to plants and confess my sins to plants and it'll make the world better. It'll help us heal where we've destroyed our ecology and where we've destroyed our ecosystems.
It doesn't point towards legitimate confession and repentance.
Right.
And part of confession, you and I both, when we lead confession in our services, the point of pointing our, at least in the Presbyterian liturgy, it's not me as the clergy telling you all that you're forgiven. It's me it's me leading us that we need to be forgiven.
Right.
And then pointing them to the fact that it's not me as the clergy that's forgiven you, it's Jesus.
It's Jesus. That's right. Right.
And so the scary thing is that, it's not, even as a Calvinist, it's not my place to say who's going to hell and who's not going to hell or who's going to heaven. Still think that God chooses who goes to heaven and hell. Mm-hmm. But the danger of this theology is that it leads people away from the true source of forgiveness and salvation.
Right. That's exactly right. And if Orthodox Christian point of view, which has been around, or theology, which has been around for 2,000 years now, some people will argue that they try to set it at like Athanasius time and Constantine. But honestly, if 2,000 years of Christianity is right, then this stuff really does matter. And just because we're now woke and we want to be relevant, there's nothing more relevant than the gospel.
Right.
We can't be any more relevant than Jesus Christ.
A good friend of ours and colleague points out that schools like Union, and you see some of it in a lot of mainline, they're not training pastors or clergy. They're training social justice act warriors.
Right.
Now, Todd and I are both for social justice.
Yeah.
But we know that is all rooted in one person.
One person.
Jesus Christ.
That's right.
We are not training people to proclaim that. We are training people to simply become political activists.
That's all we're doing. Yeah.
Whether it's conservative or liberal.
This is news. This is a news flash. But Jesus was not an activist.
No.
Jesus was the Son of God.
The Son of God.
Yeah.
His life and his resurrection caused his disciples to activate and be active in pursuing that kingdom.
Yeah.
And the justice comes out of that.
Absolutely.
But the social justice activism is itself not the gospel.
Amen.
The gospel is Jesus Christ.
Amen. Yeah. That's where it begins, is where it ends. And it doesn't end because Jesus Christ is eternal.
I think that's the most preachy I've been on these podcasts.
Yes. So I guess at this point, we'll conclude. I want to thank you for listening in, and supporting us through your listenership. That's important. We're going to have all of the stuff we talked about in the episode notes, and we hope that you will check all of that out. You can support us. So let's talk. How can they support us, Sal?
So there's a couple ways you can support us. You can support us by going to Apple iTunes or Spotify and subscribing to the show. Specifically with Apple iTunes, give us a rating. Give us a rating, because that's how Apple knows that people dig us and they're listening, and that gets us bumped up on their ratings. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Party on Johncast, or you can become a patron.
Ooh.
Through our Patreon site.
And we have a patron now.
We do.
So.
We now have a patron, a good friend of mine in the Presbytery. Handed him his car magnet this couple weeks ago at Presbytery. Said, thank you, our one and only patron.
Yes. And we're hoping to get more. And honestly, for the one patron we have, that you're going to get to listen and watch some extra content, which we will record right after we end this podcast. So you're missing out if you're not supporting us.
That's right.
All you need to do is give up one frappuccino at Starbucks a month, and you could support us and
get access to bonus content.
Yeah.
Get a car magnet, and if you do our top tier, you get all of that, plus you get a discount on our swag.
Actually, you get a discount for the two top tiers, I believe. But the other thing that you get is shout outs. We can do shout outs, and also we will invite you to converse with us and kind of be in a part of the planning process for these podcasts. So the top tier is a sweet deal, but there are 3 tiers that you can support us with, and each have their benefits. One thing I will also say is, if you'd like, you can also go to the Life Giving Water swag store and buy any and all of your Party on Johncast gear,
including Todd and I are both rocking Party on Johncast cell phone cases.
The one and the only.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's about it.
That's it. Have a spooktacular Halloween
and a howl of a good time.
I'll be celebrating a birthday that day because it's Allison's birthday. She's got the best birthday ever. Halloween
is the best birthday. My daughter's is the day before.
Yeah.
Goosey night. So
that's what we'll be doing. So, yeah, have a spooktacular month.
absolutely. You too, Sal.
Be excellent to each other.
Absolutely.
And don't be a jerk.
Rock on.
Rock on.